Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, he is a returning guest. Some stuff has happened since we last had him on, which you're going to get into on this podcast. He is, of course, a member of the Blue Wire podcast family, host of the In the Know pod. You could also read his stuff on Bourbon Street Shots. Very pleased to welcome back Mr. New Orleans Pelican, Mason Ginsberg. Hello, Mason.
Thanks for having me back. I feel like we had so much fun reminiscing about being blocked by Julius Randle on Twitter that I had to come back and chat more with y'all.
So I'm still, actually, no, I don't. How can I check? I'm bringing in Andrew for a producer's note here early. I don't have the ability to check if I'm still blocked, or can I? I have to type in his name.
You can go to his profile and just see if you have access to it.
Oh, okay. I'll do that later. I'm not going to do that later.
Okay.
I've already made my peace with it, and I hold absolutely no. Do you still hold a grudge against Julius? Because I don't hold any grudges.
Too old to hold grudges against NBA players at this point.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Except Eric Gordon. The rest is fine.
I mean, listen, we all have one. Enes Kanter is my one. And it's so funny because like Knicks fans have come to like, some Knicks fans loved him when he was here, but like, you know, a few years have passed. Like nobody, I'm the only one. Just something about Kanter. Not my cup of tea. So we're continuing as we've been doing here on KFS already throughout the season. A little preview of some teams that they're playing in upcoming games. And we are indeed playing the New Orleans Pelicans. I believe the game is on Saturday. So we are recording this right now on Thursday, about 3.5 hours before tip off of the Bulls game. From a Knicks perspective, I could just say, for my 2 cents, and actually I want to get your thoughts on this. So early in the season, it feels like the tenor of the game, the next game, can change so much depending on the result of the game that's immediately coming up. Like I feel like, okay, if we beat the Bulls, go into New Orleans, if we drop a game against the Pelicans, they're due. It's not a huge deal. If we lose to the Bulls, and it's like, if we lose to the Pelicans aren't that good. Like, it's just not. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know how to think about the Pelicans yet, but do you feel any of the same kind of, stuff going into these games? Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. It's all ridiculous at this point, but especially with New Orleans, it's at the start when obviously found out Zion's not gonna be back for the start of the season. The first couple of games were just a total disaster. And then the third game was, they had 30 turnovers against the Timberwolves, and it's like the world is on fire. And then they came out and played a really nice game against Timberwolves and got their first win. And the most recent game against Atlanta last night was a great one, and it was a lot. I watched most of it. Great game. It was a really fun game, and they're obviously gave up a ass load of offensive rebounds that cost them the game, but then it's like at least like. They're 1-4, but they're trending up as a team, and it is like it's all what have you done for me lately? And you can rationalize however you want, right? It's like looking at the schedule. It's like I'm sure Bulls. You look at the Bulls schedule and say, yeah, they're 4-0, but who have they beaten? Right? They beat they beat us without Zion. They beat the Pistons twice, and Pistons without Cade. They beat the Raptors without Siakam. Yep. So it's They look good, but how good are they? And you don't know those things this early in the season. And so, I feel like a year or two ago, we were talking about, the Magic going to make the playoffs. And now it's like, the Timberwolves going to make the playoffs. It's all guesswork at this point. I feel like maybe, I don't know, just because I've been paying more attention over the last few years, but like to the league at large, it feels like this year is even more batshit crazy just in terms of like some of the results we're seeing early on. Like how many teams, we don't have to go off on too much of a tangent, but how many teams could really feel like great about themselves right now? Like, okay, Utah has like their usual crazy net rating, but like that was a close game against Denver. And then Jokic went out and then, whatever. It's like other than the Bulls, again, like you said, they're 4-0, but who have they beat? We'll see what happens against the Knicks. Everybody's had like, I feel like, well, except Detroit, who's winless. Everybody's had a good win or a win that they could feel good about, and everybody's had like a bad loss. And you guys have had all of your games, as you already mentioned, without a guy who's pretty important. So let's start there. What's your expectation at this point with I'll refer to him as the big guy. What's the thinking here? Oh man, I really don't know where to start. I mean, it's that said it all. That breath that you took. That's the answer. Man. That's a good enough answer. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's at this point, the hope is soon. I mean, I don't know what soon means. And so at this point, you're thinking November is reasonable. And so you hope,
2 or 3 weeks is kind of what my fingers are crossed for that. And really just want to see the team play, the certain units play well together and show that they're a Zion away from being really dangerous. And I think you've seen that over the last couple of games. They're starting to figure things out. And you have obviously some issues with depth without Zion, especially in the front court. But like I said, the last couple of games against the Timberwolves and against the Hawks, you've seen them start to put things together, and it doesn't make them a good basketball team without Zion. I think they can be average without Zion, and be a playoff team with Zion. But again, steps in the right direction, but that doesn't do you much good. And if Zion's going to be out for a while, I mean, you've got to have a light at the end of the tunnel. And right now, I think you see it, but it's all just, guesswork.
Well, let me ask you this, because like the other thing I think that maybe, I don't know, I would say like people don't realize, but I certainly didn't realize until I started like actually really looking at their roster, what it is. Like, I feel like you guys are a pretty young team. Like, I know Graham is, he's technically on his second contract, but this is only his fourth year in the league, if I'm correct. And like, so who's like your veterans? Like Valanciunas, obviously, he's been around for
Garrett
a while.
Temple.
Right.
No, I mean, so that's it.
Yeah. And Brandon Ingram this is his sixth year, sixth year, I think, right? Sixth or seventh, one of those two.
Yeah, sixth year. And so so the only player older than 30 on the roster, because Jonas is 30, is Garrett Temple. And so that was I don't want to go off on role players at this point and contracts we gave, but
it's a safe place. This is a safe place. Is mostly Knick fans going to be listening to this. So you can, if you want to say something you don't feel comfortable saying on your own pod, you can feel free to say.
No, it's just wasted. It's not worth the time for like the 11th, 12th man on the roster. I was a little frustrated they gave him a second guaranteed year in that sign and trade. But I mean, like he's from Baton Rouge. He went to LSU. He's a guy, his family, and he's a guy that's known in the Louisiana area. And so he is a good vet to have on your roster. And so it's, I mean, as far as veterans go, I mean, you can certainly do worse. And Valanciunas, who they just gave a 2-year extension to, has been great for the Pelicans so far. It's really, I think they're overextending him on minutes, and they've got to be careful. But hopefully it's short-term play if Zion comes back soon. But he's playing a lot. But he's a great. I think he's going to be someone who can really play a lot of minutes with the bench and kind of anchor that unit. And they can slow things down while he's in and kind of run through him and
that's interesting.
And let Zion and BI play more together. And so that's
like stagger Val and Zion once Zion comes back. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you could see like Valanciunas play the first 5 minutes and then come out and then bolster that bench unit. That's the offense, slow shit down. And you can maximize the amount of time you can play Zion and BI together and really, and see really good progress from them. But yeah, I mean, it is a young team. They're starting Herb Jones, who's a second round draft pick rookie out of Alabama. Who's been great defensively. He's I mean, beyond what anyone ever expected. But yeah, I mean, that kind of goes to show they closed with 2 rookies last night. Trey Murphy also played in crunch time. And so obviously you're missing Josh Hart and Zion, but I mean, it's a combination of you can trust those rookies early, or Willie Green feels like he can, which is great, but also you have to trust those rookies early. And so it's kind of, playing both sides there. Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a different situation here in New York where it's like you have, we have actually 3 rookies on the roster because Jericho Sims is a 2-way, but he's gotten some time because of the injuries to the centers. But like, the youngest, and not to say that New York is an old team. They're not an old team because like RJ, Quickly, Obi, like all of these guys are playing significant roles. But Tibbs is going to Tibbs, and Tibbs is going to go with the guys that he trusts. So this will be an interesting matchup. I hadn't watched them before last night, or what is, as we're speaking now, was last night. I thought Ingram had moments. I feel like we'll get back to Zion in a bit, but like, where are we at with Brandon Ingram? Is Brandon Ingram? Is there still like a superstar upside there? Is there a world where he's like he could like? Zion's going to come back and the team will be whatever the team is. But like, what is a team if Brandon Ingram is your best player? Like, where are you at after having now watched him for a couple of years?
Yeah. I mean, early returns this season have been great. I'd say last night was probably his worst game. He's been throwing up 25, 30 points a night and hitting tough shots. And obviously you don't want him to be hitting tough shots, but right now defenses are keying in on him because he's the guy, he's the scorer. And so I think, and I've seen a much better defensive effort from him so far this year than anything before. Cause that was a real barrier to success for this Pelicans team. If you think big picture, was that can a team with Zion and BI as their two best players form a competent defense? The offense was never going to be the question. It was the defense. And so
was it effort though with Ingram, or was it like just he didn't get it, or like what do you think it was?
Combo. I mean, I think effort and also just not being, not being that smart of a defender, but I think he's starting to learn how to use his length to disrupt. Okay. And again, the effort's been much improved so far this year. Again, only 5 games, but, and then, offensively, the teams are keying in on him. I think, you've already seen the benefit of Devonte Graham with him as another guy who can hit tough shots. I mean, you saw a few of those, a couple of ridiculous shots he made last night against Atlanta, but that's a guy who's going to, I think, help take some pressure off of him in the meantime along with Valanciunas before Zion gets back.
I'm glad you brought up Graham. He's a guy that, like, for a hot minute there, I was like, he should be our number one target, like back in time, like going before this summer came around. And then quickly started to emerge for us. And I'm like, okay, well, how many small, not quite point guards are you going to have on your team who kind of have like a similar game? So then I kind of backed off that. But I really like Graham. And that's not just because my first time ever covering a game in person was the game where he beat the Knicks on a last second shot for Charlotte. That was fun. But like, I was really impressed by, it's year 2, obviously, is when he blew up, but even last year, like the 3-point percentage was still very high. I know he has had his struggles around the rim. And do you like the fact that you guys have Devonte Graham? I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about Lonzo. Like, every time you watch this team now, do you like think to yourself, like, how would Lonzo look instead of him? Do you wish there was a world where they could have had both of those guys? Like, where are you at there?
Yeah, I mean, the first round pick price tag for Graham in the sign trade was tough to stomach at first. Then you learn about the details, which is it's lottery protected and it immediately converts to 2 seconds if they're in the playoffs this year. If they're not in the playoffs this year. Yeah. So it's, if it doesn't pan out, then, hey, okay, you give up a couple of seconds. But I think the cost, his contract's like $12.5 million a year. I think it's great value for him.
I think it's good value.
So, yeah. And so I'm very happy with what he is so far. I think, very early returns are similar problem to Lonzo around. You're not very efficient at the rim. The difference is he's getting there, and he's not. He's had a couple errant passes, but also looks like he's taking better care of the ball down there. Okay. And you also, and I think a part of the calculus too has to be you have guys to clean up the mess in Valanciunas as well as Zion. And so if you're missing shots, if you can get there, even if you're missing shots, you've got guys who can get a putback and throw it down. So, was there a world if you kind of hindsight 2020, the offseason, I think Griff may have had a couple of miscalculations around how likely is it we can go get Kyle Lowry and a couple other things. And if you kind of play everything back, can you keep Lonzo and still do all these things? Yes, they could have and still been a little bit under the tax, I think. That said, it's Lonzo means less minutes for guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's already been taking on a key role for the Pelicans this year, and they want him to grow with this team.
Well, he's starting, and by the way, he is the starting point guard. Devonte Graham is technically the starting shooting guard, or do you guys not even?
Don't care. Okay. I don't. I mean, especially when you get like we had the point Zion revolution a couple months for a period of time last year between him and BI's also creating, and so it's just get guys with skill sets that mesh and figure out the rest later. But yeah. So I mean, like with Lonzo, you could have. I mean, playing all things back, you could have kept him. I don't think he really wanted to be in New Orleans that much at that point, and also. If you're re-signing him just because you think you can flip him, if it doesn't work out, you can flip him. It's a risky play, especially so close to the tax. So, I get the arguments. I'm totally fine letting him walk. I think he fits very nicely on that Bulls team. So,
count me as I'll say it right now before. I mean, who knows? Maybe he looks like crap in this game, but I'm concerned because I know he's been hitting threes. But yeah, no, it's interesting because like we talked before the trade deadline last year, and there was clearly, I don't know exactly where it was coming from, but it was definitely coming from somewhere. The smoke about like Lonzo, the Knicks, I don't know who within this or in the Knicks organization liked him, but there were definitely a person or people within the Knicks organization who were at the very least intrigued by Lonzo. And then the trade deadline gets here. And then you're hearing like, okay, is it because did they not want to take on Bledsoe's contract? Was it they didn't want to give up whatever the situation was? There was no trade that happened. You guys kept Lonzo, finished out the year, whatever. And then this summer came, and like again, I couldn't really figure it out because I mean it was clear he was gone. I guess he always wanted maybe Chicago. I just that situation is still somewhat confusing to me, and I guess it's water under the bridge at this point. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I think the trade deadline is a good kind of barometer for why the Pelicans did what they did. Is they didn't get any offers close to good enough to move him at the deadline, which could be an indicator of why they had such trepidation around giving him a new contract. Because even if you had any sort of concerns, and you're really doubling down on a team that just didn't make the playoffs and it wasn't very good, and then you have to pay to move him if something doesn't work out. I mean, that's a risk. And so, understand, start fresh, build a little bit differently to get a team that can really get to the playoffs. Yeah, no. And again, when Zion comes back, we'll see how that goes. I'm curious who we put on Devonte Graham. I'm assuming we'll start Kemba Walker guarding Devonte Graham. That would seem to make the most sense because Nickeil Alexander-Walker is kind of like bigger. Figure we'll put Fournier on him, and then that would mean RJ Barrett will be matched up with Brandon Ingram. So the two Dookies hopefully will get a chance to go at it. Yeah. Are you at all excited to see RJ Barrett? I'm always curious what other people's perception of RJ Barrett is. Where are you at on RJ? This is probably a good time to tell you I'm high on the Knicks with my fantasy basketball team. I got three players on my team. I got Barrett, Fournier, and Mitchell Robinson all. So I bet you Mitch. Well, actually no. It's been more. He has some blocks and steals, obviously, and obviously he's cleaning up on rebounds. But like his impact, I think, has been felt beyond the stats sheet. So I don't know how he's doing for you. Well, Fournier's gone the other way because he's been making a ton of threes, so that's been nice. He's been doing a lot of that. No, I'm excited. I think so. I haven't watched much Knicks this year, but I mean, I'm high on RJ Barrett's growth second half of last year, and so I think the Knicks are a tough matchup all the way around. I am curious how the Pelicans decide to match up because like I said, they've been starting Herb Jones, who's like a name nobody's going to know. He was a 4-year player. You guys, you went and got him, and correct. It was not our pick because the Thunder went and got our pick and we went down, but you guys took, what did you take him at 33? Was that it? Yeah. Early second round. I can't remember the exact pick, but yeah, I mean, and we gave him a multi-year deal in August. So, okay. There you go. They saw something they liked. And, the first time we heard he was starting, I was like, really? I mean, knew he's a versatile defender, but he's been really good. And there's been Herb at the 5 lineups. And so that's how versatile he's been defensively. Interesting. And so I'm curious who he'll be matched up on. I don't know if they're going to go BI on Julius Randle or BI on Barrett and then Herb Jones on Randle. I don't know. If I were you, this is easy for me to say. I might think about going, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I would think about going Ingram because even though Ingram is slight, like Randall. So one thing Knicks fans don't love is when Randall, shocker, goes into the ISOs and backs guys down. Like, and that is, we saw it. Let me just be very clear. He has had success with that at times, but even during those times when he is able to back guys down and make those buckets, it's, that's when the offense kind of, halts to a standstill, unless he's kicking it out, which is when good things happen. But will you guys double? Will you challenge, go one-on-one? I think it is interesting. And then I'll be interested on the flip side. Mitchell Robinson did a nice job against Joel Embiid the other night, did more than a respectable job. Valanciunas is, man, is he beasting down in New Orleans? Yeah. He's still doing his thing. Okay. Yeah. That's a little scary, but I think Mitch will be up for the challenge. I want to just touch on a few other guys before we finish up. So you mentioned Troy Murphy. There were 2 guys that the Knicks were rumored to be hot and heavy for before the draft. One was Chris Duarte, who I guess Indiana never had
any inclination of giving up the pick that they were going to take him with.
He's been good so far for them too.
I mean, what is he averaging? Like 20 points a game? He does look good. And then the other guy is Murphy, who apparently really wowed them in a workout. They've tried. My understanding is they attempted to maybe move up to, because you guys got him at, what was it, 16 or 15? Somewhere 17, in there. 17. Okay. Yeah. So I think maybe it was that the Knicks tried to move up to 15 with Washington to get him, and like they couldn't make it. Whatever it was, they didn't get him. You guys have him. How has he looked so far?
He was kind of the star of summer league and preseason for this Pelicans team, or one of them, basically showing that he can do stuff besides make threes, and that he's got a quick trigger and he's going to shoot it and make it. And he's been doing that to a lesser degree, just lower volume in the regular season so far. But I think jury's still out on other things he can contribute with right away. But showed rebounding chops, showed defensive chops, and again in preseason and summer league beyond kind of what I was expecting for a rookie. But I mean, he hasn't gotten a ton of minutes out of the gate for New Orleans. But I mean, like I said, he closed against the Hawks. Okay. So it's a guy they want to put trust in early, and they know he can shoot. And I think as you get Zion back, it's probably going to be an even heavier consideration towards maybe even thinking about starting him, just because of what he's a guy who can really, space the floor. And the Pelicans have guys who can shoot, but they don't have a ton of oh shit shooters, like that are you have to run out and like I think Devonte Graham is starting to get that reputation just because he can create his own shot and make threes at a high rate.
He also has the range, like his range is deep. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if Murphy can prove he's that kind of shooter, he'll have more of a chance to get some heavy minutes. And I think, like I said, before the games counted, he was showing some good promise. One
other name I just have to ask about is Kyra Lewis Jr., because like a lot of Knicks fans fell in love with him before the draft last year, and we didn't end up getting him. And good things are happening with Obi Toppin right now for sure. I feel like I just haven't heard much about Kyra other than like little drips and drabs. Like he has a moment here, a moment there. Where is the fan base on him? Where do you think is the organization still high on him? Like, do you have any inkling of that?
I think that your assessment's about right. I mean, he had a good stretch for part of the season last year. He's fast. I mean, that's one thing. Like he can get to the rim, and so being able to drive is something that is obviously valuable. And like you said, like you're wondering who's the point guard for the Pelicans. I mean, like that's kind of that's a big skill set that they value. And so hasn't started out great this year. He's always the 3-point shooting has always been a suspect since the end of the league. But they're giving him, he was the second sub, I think, to check in for the Pelicans last night. And so like they're putting their trust in, they're letting him play, maybe a little bit because Satoransky was so bad to start the year.
I was about to say he's getting like DMPs now, right?
I mean, I've been told I did not go back and watch the games when I was on my on the end of my honeymoon in Europe, but I was told he was terrible in the first 2 games he played, and he's gotten benched since then. I was like, well, I mean, he's not 40, he's 30 years old. Like, that's a small sample size. I feel like he got good minutes of the Bulls last year.
I always kind of like, he's one of those guys, like whenever you watch play, you're like, oh, he's a good little player. Like not a guy you probably want starting for you, but he feels
like a minor stat sheet pattern, like 3-pointers, assists, rebounds. He can kind of do all those things to a lesser degree. So
that's that's definitely interesting. All right. So you referenced the Lowry thing earlier. It obviously did not go well. I have good memories of that. When a GM or a president kind of clearing cap or like making moves before that you're going to get the guy. We don't have to talk about that, I guess. So to me, I guess we don't have to go like have big picture conversations about Zion. I mean, let's see what it looks like when he comes back, and like maybe if they start rolling and the team's winning, it's like whatever was discussed, before the season like kind of goes away. But like, how much of the Zion? Well, I should ask you this. Where is your Zion level of concern? And like, how much do you think it has to do with the fact that, like, again, this Lowry thing, like, did not go well. Like something went awry there. Right. And like, do you think that, or have you heard anything, or like, have you read anything where it's like, is there like still trust in the organization, like that they know what they're doing? Or are you starting to get concerned?
I don't think the offseason has much to do with the big picture Zion topic. I think that there's some concerns about Zion's family, I think, and basically that they don't want him in New Orleans and all that. I think that is certainly concerning. I think that there's a level of I think my biggest issue is that it seems like some of the mistrust distrust that exists with the Williamson family and the Pelicans, and some of it does exist, is a little misplaced. I think there's some reasonable, distrust and grift because some things maybe haven't gone eye to eye from the start. I think there's also some, the way that both sides are trying to handle his medical, any medical concerns that's where I'm very confused, because the Pelicans, by all accounts,
it's confusing.
It's very confusing. They've done everything right. The Pelicans med staff. I mean, they've been very careful with him, and they've tried to kind of put him on the right path. But I mean, bluntly put, I mean, they can't. How much can they do to force him to eat right and to take care of his body over the offseason? And so that's kind of what the issue is right now. And the Pelicans are doing their best to be diplomatic and not. They're never going to throw their star franchise player under the bus or anything, and they shouldn't. But at the same time, it's a question of what does Zion's family not really see eye to eye on with the Pelicans as far as this, because they're trying to set him on the right path, and they can only do so much.
I don't want to get you in trouble here. And from the tenor of your response just now, I feel like asking, like, is there not a part of the fan base, but is there a sentiment amongst the fan base of like Zion needs to be better in terms of not on the court? On the court, he's fucking amazing, but in terms of like whatever he's doing or not doing off the court, or is it, is there like a fear of like that is not something we want to put out into the universe? Like where are you guys at with him?
Fan base is probably over torqued towards Zion's got to be better. I mean, I think the New Orleans fan base is so jaded with the Anthony Davis situation that they're probably less. They're shooting from the hip a little bit with as it relates to Zion. And
interesting.
I think certainly he should be held accountable, just like any player should. And so I think that's very fair. But at the same time, let's pump the brakes a little bit. And this goes for everyone. Like Zion's played about one full season of basketball games. And the fact that we're already having these conversations feels a little premature. But everyone's on edge about this. And it's understandable given the level of talent that Zion is and can be.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna lie. He's the name. He is a name I have circled. I'm going to continue to keep an eye on what goes on because he's a transcendent talent. And yet I can tell you without question, there are a lot of Knicks fans who, should things transpire over the next however many years, and like, his name really does get like linked to the Knicks. Not that that's out there at all. I just want to be very clear. Like I think there's a lot of Knicks fans who like would want maybe not nothing to do with him, but like have this similar fears to what perhaps people in New Orleans have. And I get it. Especially like the tight ship that Tibbs runs here and like needing to be, supremely conditioned and the whole thing. Like, I don't like, how would that even go? I don't know. It's not something we have to think about right now, but I just want to see the guy back because I'm a basketball fan and he's a really good basketball player. And so you still think playoffs are a solid goal for the season?
Yeah. I mean, the Zion X factor, I mean, if he's not going to come back till next season till next year, then, that starts to go out the door. But I think as long as he can come back in the next few weeks, I mean, I think this team is, and the Pelicans can kind of tread water. They've got some winnable games coming up. And it's which is kind of a double-edged sword, right? I mean, you almost want to play the really good teams without Zion because we would lose to them anyway.
I was about to say, do you want the like quote unquote bad teams now? I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good, but also like you see, like weird shit happens early in the season, and so like you see the Knicks or the Lakers losing the Thunder last night.
We lost to the Magic. I mean, we're not above anything.
I mean, the Thunder though, they're like, I mean, are they going to win 10 games this year?
I saw that game going on. They were up at 22.
I mean, LeBron or no LeBron, like Russ and AD should be able to beat that Thunder team by themselves. But anyway, Yeah. So, I mean, it's so hard to predict anything and because we don't know when Zion's coming back. So we'll see.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm happy it doesn't sound like he's going to be back for this game because as a Knicks supporter, I'll take every win I could get. We'll have to do this again sometime further down. I have a feeling like there's always, I don't know. I feel like there's always going to be like noise between these two teams connecting somehow. Like, I don't know. But we'll see what happens. Before I let you go, could you tell folks at home where they could find you?
Yeah, sure. So, not doing too much writing anymore, but, like you said, I'm doing the In the Know podcast with the Blue Wire Network. Me and Shamit Dua is our co-host, carries my ass pretty much. And we're, all Pelican stuff and, following the Zion saga, following the Pelican season. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about in the coming weeks. But, any Pelicans fans, definitely check us out.
Good stuff, man. If you want to know a little bit more about Zion, Brandon Ingram, Devonte Graham, any of the Pelicans, tune in. These guys run a great show. And Mason, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.